Hello, and welcome to another episode of Scavenger Life. This is episode number 233 at scavengerlife.com, aka Trash Elf Radio.
Yeah. We've been hearing some podcasts lately, other people's podcasts, and they have these like really produced
intros,
kind of beginnings. Not us. Okay, if you have chosen to sell on eBay or online as your profession, you found the right people, because that's what we do. We sell online on eBay for a living.
Yes.
So if you don't do that, you probably will be very bored about what we're going to talk about.
You might still be bored, even if you are an online seller.
We hope that you're photographing or listing or packing right now. That always makes us feel good to think that we might be keeping people company while all the little elves are out there. Actual, like, little Christmas elves sending things away to people.
It is like being a little elf.
That's right.
Santa's workshop.
So this past week was kind of a quiet week for us.
Yes, or was it?
Or was it?
I don't know. Well, was it?
I don't know.
Wasn't it?
We will do the numbers in a bit, but it certainly felt that way, and I think that's interesting when you actually look at your numbers. The difference between how something feels, and how it really is, And sometimes it feels slow, and it was slow. Sometimes it feels slow,
and it wasn't.
Your numbers are like, we made some money. I don't know. What's it going to be like this week?
I don't know.
Stay tuned.
I haven't.
Stay tuned.
Dude, all of a sudden we're in like a 1920s radio drama.
Yep.
Yes.
I mean, like we had on Tuesday, for instance, we had a day where we basically only answered questions. Like,
these are the questions that like Brian from New Vintage New York would ignore.
Like, will this fit me?
Yeah, will this fit me? Can you give me the chest measurements? Yeah, they're on the listing, people.
Yeah.
Like, what are you looking at?
Can you, like, in things that we always say, can you split a lot for me? People, a lot of items.
Yeah. You're like, here's a lot of 3 items. They're like, can I just buy this one item? No.
Yeah.
You can't. I'm selling them as a set.
Yeah.
Ugh, drive me crazy.
Just because it's a pain in the butt to then rephotograph and
Unless they're like, I'll give you full price for just that one thing. I'm like, great. And I'll send you the rest too.
Yeah. Someone mentioned, I forgot who it was.
A couple people mentioned this.
He mentioned maybe it's the weather, because it's El Niño. It's been warm, like here in Virginia. It's been in the 70s.
It's December. It's Christmas, and it's like springtime outside.
Yeah. It's a little cold today, but And so I actually found an article where retailers, like actual real retailers, are feeling the heat of lost winter clothing sales, and it's true. Like if it's hot outside, people aren't buying jackets.
I mean, there was this one day, so it was mostly 60s and 70s, like warm weather, and there was this one cold day, and we sold like 3 sweaters.
Yeah.
So it's just funny how direct that is.
Right. But I mean, and look, we don't want to bore people, but this is what we always say. For us, we don't have like some overall strategy. We don't have a marketing department. I don't have like some kind of like TV in our house that's showing us like graphs. It's just like we just put stuff up, and sales are going to be slow some weeks.
Yeah.
They're going to be better on other weeks. I mean, we have no control over that stuff. I mean, if people don't want to buy stuff,
they don't buy
They don't buy stuff.
Yeah.
All we can do is do good photos, good descriptions,
good titles,
good
customer service,
and to ship well, and ship fast. I mean, that's basically what more can people like us do?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so sales are up and down, but we know things will always sell. Okay, another thing we did this week was kind of not about eBay, but is about scavenging.
Yeah.
Being on the other end of scavenging.
Right.
So we bought the second rental. We bought it as is, so it had everything inside of it. The owner thought it was like a bonus. Great, did you get all this stuff? We saw it as a pain in the ass because everything in there's junk. Junky
furniture.
We brought home a truckload of stuff, decent stuff, but for the most part, it's like old furniture, heavy stuff.
So here's what I started to do. I was starting to try to sell some of it on Craigslist for a reasonable price, but pretty cheap. And
Like how much? Like a fridge, like a cheap kind of chef's mate fridge for what, $100?
yeah, it was a Magic Chef fridge, clean, totally runs great. I put it for $100. No, not one response.
Except the only people that would email us are the spam,
like
Craigslist people.
Craigslist spam
like
people.
I'll send you a money order.
Yeah, it was just junk. So the problem was this: people on Craigslist want a bargain, like below a bargain. They're just like, whatever.
We get it. We're those people.
I know, I'm those people. That's the problem. I'm like, I love buying stuff on Craigslist, but selling stuff on Craigslist kind of sucks.
I think too, if we lived in an urban area and it was easier to get to our place, then you could sell stuff for $50 like a fridge, but most people coming here would be driving at least half an hour, and
I had to tell them, look, it's up 40 steps. So whatever. It's a pain for anyone. So that was taking way too long. I'm like, this is not working. Let's give this stuff away for free, because for us, we need to clean the house out and we don't want to haul it down the steps.
Yeah.
So I want it's essentially free labor to get this stuff out.
Ultimately, we would like to have sold stuff, but it was better for us just to get free labor to get rid of everything.
Right. We don't want to pay movers to move this stuff out and donate it. So I have experience on FreeCycle giving stuff away. But how that works is, for me, it's worked. You put up this free thing. The first person who contacts you, you work with them until you can work out a pickup, and then everyone after them is in line. We decided to put the entire house up for free on Craigslist.
And then say, just like, whoever comes at 11 o'clock, you can get whatever you want.
and so my thing was, I showed a picture of the steps, and we're like, U-Haul, it's big, heavy sofas and whatever. And I was like, nobody's gonna really do this. It's gonna be like 2 people, whatever. No. We got, within 2 hours, I had so many emails that I was getting frightened. Right. Actually.
About 30 emails, 30 people emailed.
In about 2 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we were on the other end of what it's like when scavengers start swarming. So it was a swarm of scavengers, and then that night I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't
sleep either.
And I started realizing, like, we were going to show up in 2 days with, like, people angry because they're fighting over stuff.
They're fighting over a couch.
And so I think the other issue is we put, like, house clean out, like, free. And I think a lot of people might have been thinking, like, oh, it's like a real house with, like, cool valuables. And really it's just, like, junky furniture. And so anyway, we canceled it, emailed everyone, and then we did it the way Ryan said.
I picked one person.
One person that a woman said, I'll be there. She came. We told her, take all or nothing. She said, okay. I don't know if she's going to keep it all or sell it. I don't know.
We don't care.
But she came with her friends. They took everything, and it's great. It took us 2 hours of our time.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely a lesson learned. Like, oh, yeah, you have to coordinate this better.
I mean, I think that's the other thing, too, being on the other end of, like, scavengers. Like, as soon as we put stuff up for free, it was a much different kind of person who was emailing us. I mean, people were like, I just got kicked out of my house. I just got divorced,
Like, I have a family of 7 and I have nothing.
I mean, whether or not they're telling the truth.
Yeah, they might not be telling the truth.
There's really a level of either real desperation or people using desperation to get stuff.
Yeah.
And it was very
It got a little bit scary. It got a little bit scary because I forgot that we don't live in, like, an affluent suburb of, like, Northern Virginia. It was like people were like, I'll come tonight. I'll come right now. And you're like, whoa, back off. Hold on.
But, I can't blame, because they're just being scavengers like us. So
yeah, no, I get that. But there was a level of not being able to manage it on our end that was like, oh, we have to manage this better. And we did. So that was a lesson.
Yep. And then the other thing is, so it kind of has happened over the past several weeks, and we've kind of talked about it. Like, our favorite auction house
is closing down.
Yeah. So one of our favorite thrift stores has become, and I saw some other people talk about this on the blog, they're now selling on eBay. So it's still a thrift store, and they still put stuff out for people to buy, but we've noticed the level of quality stuff has really gone down. And we follow their eBay store, and all the stuff that we would normally buy is now on eBay. Now, they don't make as much on eBay as I think they could, because they're kind of fire sailing stuff.
Because they have so much stuff.
But they are making more on eBay than they were when they were selling it in the front of their store. So that's another place that we can't really depend on. So it's interesting, even though we've been working on our kind of trash piles, our death piles, and we still have probably another 2-3 months of that. We're going to have to start finding some new places to scavenge.
Right. So there was this other thrift store in town also that was kind of new, where they would clean out storage units, and they wouldn't go through it really, and just were getting so much stuff. They're like, we don't care, just take it. And they just kind of dropped off.
Well, I've talked about that. That's pretty typical.
Yeah.
I've seen this a lot, where you'll kind of go by a strip mall, like a crappy strip mall.
Yeah.
Someone's rented a store there, and it's some guy that's buying storage.
It's like a fly-by-night thing where they're just there temporarily.
And then it just doesn't work for them, because they're not... They love buying. He's got a truck, so that's no problem. But then he just can't sell things for enough money to keep it all afloat, and then they die out after 6 months.
Yeah, so it's sad. So that's gone, and that was a main place we were picking for the last year. Yeah. And... yeah, so it was kind of weird. We went to some of our places recently, and we're not finding anything. Yeah.
So it just means this coming year, 2016, we need to start finding different places. And in some ways, that's good. It's good to keep it fresh. Yeah. I have a couple places that I've been wanting to go to. It's a little bit further of a drive. Yeah. But, we'll try it out. Right. So. Yeah. It's just a reality.
It's just things change, and... you have to evolve with it.
Yep. And the other thing is, we recorded another podcast for Shampoo and Booze, so we don't really talk about our rental business much here, but we do mention it. And we just did a podcast about, we're realizing we're going to be doing much more renovations on this place than we thought.
Once we cleared out all the... This happened today, actually. Yeah. Once we cleared out all the furniture and could see everything just open and... took the curtains down, whatever, moved the bed, you're like, we have to gut this house. That is what has to happen to make this a very high-end rental. Yeah. So that's a lot more money and a lot more time.
And so this just reminds me, what it has to do with eBay is, eBay's our engine. You know? And that's what it has been for our other two homes, is that eBay is our income generating engine, and we're making money on eBay, and then we're investing it in these other businesses, and I'm like, we got to get this engine going.
We got to crank this up. we gotta get through these death piles. But,
and again, I don't know if other people do this or not. I mean, obviously, first, you need to make enough to live.
Yeah, pay your bills.
And that's important. And some people are still that's their challenge. Is how do I make enough to quit my job and just feed my family? That's important. But those of us that have been on eBay for a while, and you get to the point where you're paying your bills, everything's cool. Yeah. Then the question is, what do you do with the extra cash? Right. And so for us, having a reason to make extra money above and beyond just paying for our food, it's a motivator, So when we're like, we want a metal roof, that's going to cost $12,000. That is a motivator. Ouch! To let's list stuff. Yeah, so that's serious. I think it's good to have goals. That. Specifically
it motivates you.
For eBay.
When I'm sitting on the couch and I'm kind of slouched here, I got to list old tools and stuff. Which I was the other day, oh god.
What's wrong with the old tools?
No, they're fine. There was just a bunch of them. I was like, nah. Yeah, that's the motivator. You're like, let's get through this. Let's sell some of this stuff. Let's save the money and let's spend it on something.
It definitely keeps it from feeling like just a grind.
Yes. Yes. There's a picture in my mind of what I want, and that's what I'm reaching for.
So something I wanted to kind of briefly touch on before we talk about our numbers is,
Yeah.
I was thinking about this, about selling online.
Yeah.
In the comments, there's some people that are like, I've quit. It's my job, or I got fired from my job,
Yeah.
or laid off. Now I'm only doing eBay, and that's cool. And then there are other people who are like, yeah, eBay's cool. It's a fun hobby. I enjoy it, but I live in like San Francisco, and and I'm able to get really good jobs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah,
That's good.
if you can make $100,000 plus, it's hard to like say,
why would I quit
why
my
would you
job?
want to sell on eBay?
Exactly.
But what someone said is, I think it was Nancy, I forgot. Someone said, but the thing about selling on eBay is it's your own business. And
Right.
what it came to me was, you're either solving your own problems or you're solving someone else's problems.
Yep.
And that's, I guess, the choice that we made.
Yes.
Do I want to live a life where I'm working for other people and I'm solving their problems, which is what my job was.
Yep.
Mine
too.
40 plus hours a week.
Yeah.
And even when my day was done, you end up going out with coworkers and you're just complaining
About work.
or
about
thinking
so-and-so.
or thinking about still how to solve those problems.
Yeah.
If you have a good job, the job doesn't really end when you clock out.
No, not at
It keeps
especially
going.
these days. No,
Right.
You have your iPhone on constantly.
And and that's forever. I mean, for
Yeah.
as long as you have a job.
Yeah.
Or you solve your own problems, and that's what we chose to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you stopped working for someone in like 2004.
Yeah, it was
full-time.
2004. Yep.
I stopped in 2006.
Yep.
We had, 2 to 4 years where we were doing freelancing, where we were still working for other people, solving problems, but it was a little less. It was kind of arm's length.
Well, and the reason we were able to be arm's length and to be flexible was we decided not to pay rent anymore and live in your dad's basement.
Right.
Like true scavengers.
Right.
And we found eBay.
Right.
So we were able to be
Right. Well,
flexible.
So then when eBay started was when we were like, I don't want to solve
anybody else's problems.
Any other time.
Yeah.
So that's the way I
Exactly.
see it. It's just like that's what we're doing now, and so that's why we do this podcast. Our other one, shampooandbooze.com, where we talk about our Airbnb business is
Yeah.
like what this is all about like we're talking about our own problems,
Right.
and how we're solving
Right.
it, and maybe people hearing us are also trying to make a life where they're just solving their own problems.
Right. It feels way more fulfilling. Like,
Yeah.
I remember because I was an editor on a television show. The whole time I was, working on this TV show, I had all these ideas for my own show. Well, I had my own cable access show. That's kind of how we met, sort of, because you
Right.
worked at cable access too. I had my own cable access show with a bunch of my friends, and we were like interested in sketches and bands and whatever. And I was like making all these pitches and like doing all the, and I was just like, why am I making someone else's show?
Right.
I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I have too many ideas and too many like things that I'm like punching buttons for someone else. It's an amazing job. It's on television. It's a show
Well
on the air.
paid.
Well paid, union job.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't do it. Like, I'm in a dark office
Right.
punching buttons. And so if you have that fire, if I was writing the show, maybe it's different. But, that's so I was 23, 24 when I left. I was like, no.
Good for you. kid.
But, the internet
Yeah.
motivated me, clearly. But,
Yeah. I mean, and the good thing about the fact that we're solving our own problems is what it means is
Yeah.
we get our own rewards.
Yes,
you
yes,
know?
yes,
And
yes.
that's the thing is that, we can get outsized rewards
Yeah.
if we do this right. Versus when I'm solving someone else's problem, the best thing I can count on is either they keep me on so they don't fire me. Or
You get a
maybe I
bonus.
get like a little raise sometime.
raise or bonus.
I don't know. I mean,
yeah. So I an example of this is, and we've been talking about this, the farmhouse. Like I said, it took 3 years to renovate. It took a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of, for me, stress, and you, but you're better at handling stress than me. But when we started renting the house, it was so rewarding. like all that pain. I mean, it was rewarding to move into our own house and be like, we have a house that we love, and then the second house, having a business that people love to come to and rave about was so rewarding that we're willing to go through that pain and stress and money another time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
That's how great the rewards are, that you're like, let's do it again.
Right.
It's like having children. Maybe. I don't know.
We don't have kids.
Some
so.
people explain
Yeah.
it like that,
Sure.
know.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that the ability to make, when we're solving our own problems, like doing eBay, like doing an eBay business here, all the little details and problems we have to solve, keeping this pipeline going, the ability to make our own choices is huge. Things like, can I sleep an extra hour today?
Right.
Like when I'm working for someone else, oftentimes I don't have that choice.
Yeah, that's
like,
answer's no.
But the ability to allow myself to sleep an extra hour is awesome. Can we take a Tuesday off to go explore like the next town over, just because we don't feel like working today?
Right, and the answer is yes.
I love that. I remember when I used to work someplace and I just had a set schedule. God, I would just be like standing outside of the back of the business and just being like,
you're like, I can't leave.
I could just get in my car and
I
go.
know.
Like, can we leisurely eat lunch together?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yep. Or breakfast, a very late breakfast.
As recently it's noticing we'll like be eating like a meal together in the early afternoon.
Yeah.
And the post office lady will come to our porch and get our stuff.
Yep.
And it's like, it feels like it's just working.
Yeah,
It's nice.
It is nice.
So bottom line, in this life, you'll always be solving problems.
Yes.
I think the choice is, are you going to be solving your own problems?
Right.
Or somebody else's?
Right, exactly.
And so for us, selling on eBay full time just means like we've chosen to solve our own problems.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you like that?
Motivational speakers. Yeah.
Oh.
So, next up, numbers.
Ryan's favorite. Go, Ryan.
Numbers. This week in our flagship store. I've had a lot of coffee today. Jay, tell me about our numbers.
Okay. This might be the first time that you've heard our numbers, isn't it?
Now, let me just say this. I cut out a bunch before this of stuff I completely ignored this week, and Jay got mad at me.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, I ignored the numbers this week.
Yeah, I mean, that's okay.
God.
Okay, so we sold, in our main store, we sold 32 items.
That's a good amount.
Yep. And we
32.
made a little over...
$1,500.
It's $1,500.
Good, I like that number. That's good.
Yep. And so our average price was about $48.
Good average price.
Which is good.
Yep.
And then... Oh, and you listed 19 items this week. Again,
that's not bad.
It was a quiet week. I mean, we were busy kind of doing other things for our
running
rental.
around.
Then in our second store, we sold 8 items for a little over $200.
Okay, that's low.
Average price was about $28, so some lower thing.
Yeah.
So we made almost $1,800 this week.
That's good.
So it felt like a slow week. It was definitely quieter than its last week, but we made $1,800.
Yeah, that's good.
That's more than $200 a day. So at the end of the week, that's okay.
Good. Yeah, exactly.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So some of the things we sold, this was the highest price item. There were these shoes. They're definitely resort wear, kind of retiree type high end shoes called Stubbs and Wooten. And we just got them because they were made out of wool. One's wool. We've got 2 pairs. One's wool, one's velvet. And we were like, these are nice. They have leather soles. I'll definitely get them.
They're made out of good quality.
Yeah, it's good quality shoes, right? So we get home and we look up the prices and we're like, these sell used sometimes for $300 a pair. New, they're $700 a pair because they're handmade and they're sold by this company in Palm Springs or somewhere fancy. I think it's actually Florida. I don't know. So anyway, we had this pair up for $299 best offer. Someone offered $200, and I was like, yes.
And these were bought at that thrift store we talked about that
Yes.
we shopped at a lot. And now
Now
that
they
they sell on eBay and they check everything, and I bet
Yep.
we'll never find something like that again.
That stuff does not get through
But
anymore.
that is a good example of when we're out scavenging, we aren't looking everything up as we go. You know, if things are cheap enough, like we bought these for $2 or $3, you know, at that price, I don't need to sit there and check it out. I'm like, you know, at worst, I'll sell them for $30. But then when you look at it, you're like, my gut was right. You know?
These are a good quality brand.
Yeah.
These are a high-end brand.
The only time we really look actively on our phones and search and see its prices for things is if we're going to spend more than like $10.
Yeah, if it's like a weird, obscure thing that you're like, is this a piece of junk or is this something that's like super rare? I need to like find out, you know.
Yeah, but even if it's cheap enough,
If it's cheap enough, just buy it,
right?
You know, and then you'll find out later.
Something we're glad we sold.
Yes.
And kind of we've been dealing with the storage we're trying to empty out. We sold an old lamp, like a cast iron lamp.
Yeah, it's cast iron. I show it to you guys in the video. And the thing was, it had a base and this long rod, and then this like neck thing with the bulb, whatever. It was in our storage, and we were like, I can't wait to sell that thing. And then like a day later, it sold, thank God, for $125. Cast iron. The awesome thing about it was, the rod was like 53 inches long. And I'm like, how am I going to pack this thing? I have to wrap the top, wrap the base, and then have this tall box, you know? And then I looked at it and I was like, I bet this thing screws apart, because that would make sense. So I screwed the top off. No problem. The cast iron rod had threads on it. And then the bottom was rusted. So what I did was I have this 3-in-1 oil. So I put it on a big rag, and I ran oil into the threads on the top and bottom. I flipped it. And I did that for like a day. I would keep oiling it.
Wow.
Jay has no idea. He's like, I don't know.
I just heard this.
Yeah, so I did that. And so what I did was I took a pair of channel lock pliers. I wrapped a cloth around it, put the channel lock pliers on the rod, and I unscrewed it because it was rusty, so you had to like break the seal. So that came off. And so I packed the base. It was pretty small. The base was pretty small, and the top in one box. You know, it's cast iron, so you have to basically treat it like glass, because that stuff will break. And then the rod, what I did was, you know, I wrapped each end in like bubble wrap and stuff, and I took those Priority Mail. They're like triangular.
It's for posters.
It's for posters or whatever. And I put 2 of those together, and I wrapped the rod in like newspaper and bubble wrap. And so I shipped it in 2 different pieces. I actually shipped it Priority Mail, and that was way cheaper than doing like a big box.
And did you email them?
Yes, so I messaged the person. I said, look, this easily threads together, like you can screw the top and the bottom on, and I shipped it in 2 separate pieces. Here are the 2 tracking. They didn't respond, but I'm like, whatever, I told you.
And did they pay enough to
yeah,
ship
they
it
paid
into-
enough. So, and they paid a handling charge for me to do everything I did to pack it. So that turned out really well. I was so happy that it was able to be taken apart.
Did you think you'd ever? Because I can imagine people are hearing this and they're like, "Why would you sell something like that?" Like
for $125.
Would you ever sell that again?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was kind of like we bought that a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Like that was,
You know, I think that's one of those things where we got it cheap enough,
and we thought it was
we were
interesting
just
enough.
like,
sure,
it's cheap enough. Let's see.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we can sell it for $500.
Yeah,
you know?
well.
So we would sell it for less. But
Yeah.
one of those experiments.
Yeah, I think I'm hesitant to buy lamps now in general because they suck to pack.
Yeah.
And sometimes they take a long time to sell.
That's why we're glad it's gone. So real quick, some other things we sold. We sold a polar transmitter. People who work out would know it's what these are. They're like it's like a heart rate monitor that fits on your wrist.
That wirelessly connects to a lot of equipment in the gym. Actually, it's really, I do want to say this. the night we sold it, it sold for $50. And we were like, cool. We don't really even know what this thing does or how it works. And we were at the gym, and the gym instructor guy was like, his girlfriend was using one, and we were like, oh, that's what it's for. It was like, I actually need one of those.
It somehow talks to the, like,
equipment.
machine.
Yeah. So basically, if you're wearing it, the equipment you're on, like, in real time shows your heart rate and calories burned rather than, like, kind of guessing.
Right.
You know, so it's kind of cool.
And that was just one of those things I learned from Mikey.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, he was finding and selling them.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, but he would get good prices
He
for
had
it.
heart rate,
So I saw
monitors.
one in a yard sale and bought it. So
Yeah, and it sold for $50, so that was good. Another cool sale was these 2 yearbooks from Connecticut in the 1960s, 1962 and 1965. And they were listed separately because sometimes people want different years. But they sold to the same person for $30 each.
So $60
$60 total,
We probably
which is
bought them
great.
for $1 or $2
$1,
each.
yeah.
And you know, this is one of those things where, you know, you probably see it at the thrift store and you're like, who cares? Like, it's some
I
little
love yearbooks.
high school in Connecticut.
I love
but we
it.
find that people eventually buy them because it's like either a grandson or a kid or
It's genealogy.
yeah, or you know, yeah, and especially maybe around this time of year, someone buys it as a gift for their grandfather.
Right,
or something.
like
Here you are.
You were in this, you know,
Yeah.
this is your high school yearbook. What's funny, and I talk about this in my What Sold video for this week, is the valedictorian and the salutatorian in 1965 of this high school. I actually Googled them because I was like, whatever happened to these people? Well, it ends up they got married and had a bunch of kids.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I found her and she had the last name of the guy.
Right.
And like they talk about like their kids and that she became like a real estate agent
Wow.
and like a lawyer. And I was like, that's so cool. So I love finding information like
That's
that.
neat.
Yeah. So, someone recently on the blog mentioned buying a bunch of brass rubbings from the UK, and they can sell for good prices. We sold one for $37. The problem with this one was it had haze on the inside of the glass.
Right. So someone had framed it
Professionally framed
professionally,
it.
and you know had the paper on its backing. And I bought it at an auction. I paid too much for it. I paid like $12 for it. Just one of those things where I just kind of got in.
Yeah,
over
you
my
just
head.
got it. Yeah.
And but we do sell these things well, and yeah, because it was all like we could have taken it out of the frame,
Yeah.
but we thought it'd be worth more in the frame, and we just said it kind of had it was like
haze.
I don't want to say it's a mold, but like a dusting.
It just felt like some kind of moisture got into it, and there was like a haze on the inside of the glass.
And there's difference between the brass ribbons too. Sometimes it's like white paper, and it's just like kind of charcoal, or not charcoal, but like
Yeah, but
lead
like
on white
yeah.
paper. This was nice. It's like on black paper, and
And
like
it's a brass
gold,
colored,
like,
yeah.
you know, it's actual brass colored.
Yeah,
so.
it was really nice, but the frame was okay. It was professionally framed, but there was no mat around it, which would have made it nicer.
Hold on real
and
quick.
the haze.
Explain to people what a brass rubbing is, because
Okay.
I didn't know.
Okay,
what these were.
so here's the deal. In the UK, there were these, I want to call them temples, but they're churches, and they had
it's medieval churches.
medieval churches, and they would have these like gravestones or plaques of like these knights and these like princes and princesses and royalty from like, you know, 1300, like super long time ago. And so people would put a big piece of paper on them and do a rubbing of them to like take the image, because it's like art.
And so they would just take like a piece of pencil or something.
It was
or
like crayon. It was like a wax crayon.
Right.
I forget why they're called brass rubbings, because I think they would use a brass crayon or whatever. I don't know. Wikipedia will tell you. So the problem is, in the UK, in the 60s and 70s, it became so popular that people were taking these rubbings and they were ruining the stone, like
Right.
the original, like it was getting worn out. So they banned it, so whatever society that's like in charge of it would take these reproductions, like a plaster cast, and then make a reproduction of it that people could do rubbings of. So that being said,
because I did do a Wikipedia search, it's called a brass edge rubbing because people are rubbing on a piece of brass. So
so it's a brass plaque.
Right,
it's not
so
like
it's a brass
stone.
plaque.
Okay.
And that's the problem, is that they're rubbing on brass, and eventually the metal underneath is just
it gets
getting
worn out.
rubbed off. Yeah.
Okay, so it is brass. Although some people do it on stone, like people do like stone grave rubbings. The reason I know about this, because my grandmother and grandfather were stationed in England in the 60s and 70s, and my grandmother did a ton of brass rubbings. So my grandmother has a ton of brass rubbings. My mother got a bunch of them framed. That's the only reason I know what they are. So we look for them because people buy them, and they are beautiful. And they can sell for a lot sometimes.
So if you can find the ones that were done in the original days when it was still... when they were still allowed to do
they're
it...
worth more.
They're worth more, yep.
So that sold for $37. $37. Okay. So another weird thing that was really
Okay,
long.
so I only bring this up. We sold a pair of, we call them pepper faces for
They're
$37.
chalkware. They were chalkware.
$37. And I only bring this up not because it's some big sale, because it's just, I never thought when we started selling on eBay that we would sell something like this. They're just little pieces of chalkware, which is just like...
It's just cheap plasterware.
Kind of just like plaster that's painted.
People collect it, though.
I got them because they just looked kooky. These two
They're
little...
kooky.
They're like peppers, you know, like
bell peppers.
Like bell pepper faces.
With faces, and they have a hook so you could like hang your keys on them. It's just like so weird.
But we've had them for a while, but someone bought them for $37. And again, I bring this up because imagine you have these two little like wall hangings, and you walk into like a brick and mortar store, and you're like, oh, I love those. How much are they? They're $37. Okay, I'll take them.
Like, can you imagine someone paying that much in a regular store?
I feel like it's one of those examples of where on the internet you can get better prices.
Yeah, I know.
Because you're finding someone who is like a deep collector or something. You know, they for some reason have a reason for it, and they almost don't care how much it costs. You know,
so like. Here's one example of something I sold yesterday. It's a patch, and it's of, like, one of Canada's Northwest Territories, okay? It's a little patch. It sold for $25. So, like, imagine going to a flea market, finding a little patch on a table, and being like, I'll pay you $25 for this. Yeah. That's crazy.
I mean, but that's why the internet is good, because it connects the hungry buyer with the exact thing he or she wants.
It's a very specific, like they're a collector, or they're like, that is the one I've been looking for, or that's the perfect one for this. I will pay $25 plus shipping to get it to me. Yeah. And I'm glad to sell.
And I think that's an example of where our a listed and it's forget it works is because, if we were just trying to get rid of these things, that patch would have sold for, $5, maybe 10
quickly. Yeah.
Quickly.
Hope.
Maybe. Yeah. But because we're willing to hold on to it, we find the person that's like $25, that's a bargain.
So let's talk about customer issues.
So last week we sold a tape cassette deck.
Yeah,
a big, heavy tape cassette.
It wasn't heavy. It wasn't heavy, but it was a little bit big. We sold it for $80. I was super excited to get it out the door.
Part of me was like, "Oh, I hope there's not a problem with it."
Yeah, and there was a problem.
And the guy gets it. He says it doesn't work. So what do? He started a return case, and we're just like, send it back. Like. He didn't. I mean, we didn't even try and do a refund because he's just like.
What's he gonna do? Like fix it?
So he mails the whole thing back.
We have to pay for shipping.
We test it, and
it was broken
for some reason. And the only thing about him is that in his return thing, he said this doesn't work. It could not have been broken
during shipping.
So he almost like said, I'm not going to let you try and do insurance on this.
Right.
I don't know how it could have broke. I mean,
I don't know. So the problem was it's a dubbing. Steven Schultz is probably like,
audio
you guys
tapes,
are amateurs. So it's audio tapes. and one side you press play, it moved fine. The left side you press play and nothing happened.
It did work when we mailed it, just for some reason between...
we tested it, so that sucked.
But, that's why we hate to sell electronics, and
Yeah.
it's just... I don't know why we got this thinking it might be worth more, but this is the problem, is because we just don't know about this stuff. It either works or it doesn't work. So basically, we lost $30,
something like that.
Because of the shipping costs.
So we just gave it away. We donated it back to a thrift store, let someone else tinker with it or use it for parts.
But a buyer, I guess, is as happy as he can be because we were very quick to take the return.
We just said give
him back his money. There's no problems.
Yeah. So something else got returned in our other store. It was, you guys saw it in my video a couple weeks ago. It was a Eastpak backpack probably from the 90s. Cute bag. And she just said her husband didn't like it. So nothing we had done wrong. They paid $36 for it. So she opened a return case and just said, it's not the right one. So she paid for shipping there, shipping back, and the 20% restocking fee. So you're like, fine, return it. I'll sell it again.
I feel a little lucky because I've been hearing other people on the blog say they've been getting a lot of returns. And that often happens to us, too, during the holidays.
Yeah.
I wonder if we're going to start getting more returns after Christmas. Maybe some things that people are getting as presents.
And then
are going to
people
start
just
getting
don't
returns,
like it. But restocking fee.
And someone, I think it was Umfug, was talking about, Sue, was just talking about that she's feeling like more people are wanting to return stuff more, just because of a place like Amazon, you know?
It's easy.
There's now just becoming more expectation of just
take a return.
I can return anything I want, anytime I want, and that's just kind of the way it is.
And that is the way it is, so deal with it.
Okay, so I don't know how to call this other than some news.
News, or just stuff we're going to talk about right now.
People last week were talking about rugs. We talk about wool rugs.
I love wool rugs.
We aren't experts on wool rugs, but we're experts at finding them. We love to find them.
I love to sell them.
And we don't have a problem. But people were asking good questions that I feel like I couldn't really answer well.
Yeah.
Things like, how do I identify it?
Yeah.
And our answer is you don't. Okay.
My answer is...
Maybe that's not their best answer. So I found a site, and there's lots of these sites out there. I will link to it on the blog at scavengerlife.com. There's a nice site where a woman has a blog, and she actually has really good photos and descriptions of the kinds of patterns.
Good.
And each pattern corresponds to different parts of the world and different cultures and tribes.
That is so helpful. You know why? Because I get at least an email a week of people saying, I bought this rug.
Yeah.
Ryan, tell me what kind of rug it is.
So there are two answers.
I don't know.
Number one is we sell wool rugs without identifying them. We just take a picture and people can identify them themselves.
Yeah.
And number two, though, if you want to, there are ways. You just have to educate you.
Yeah.
It's yourself.
So we'll link to this. This is helpful.
And it's curious if you can make more, if you can specifically identify a certain rug.
Yes.
If you can get more money for, or if
Right.
anyone cares.
Right.
I wanted to remind people, it's the holidays.
Duh.
If you use the post office,
Yes.
and if you have a carrier that picks stuff up from your house every day, tip that mail carrier.
Tip the mail carrier. There are rules on how much they're allowed to get as a gift, during the holidays or whatever. Follow those rules. It's a monetary rule. That's
wink,
fine.
Wink.
Wink, whatever.
Just do whatever you think is right. We definitely showed our appreciation for our mail carrier, and we had talked about it this past year. Our longtime carrier
Left.
got pushed up,
She
so
got
she got a
moved.
better job,
Yeah.
and we really missed her. And so we've had a woman all of this year.
Who's grumpy.
She's kind of grumpy, not very sociable, but you know what? I gave her that card with our gift in it, and then she actually gave us a card the next day.
Yeah.
And I hope she knows how much we appreciate her.
Yeah. She does know now,
Yeah.
so that's good. We got a gift from Dave Chappelle, not the comedian Dave Chappelle.
Right.
And it was in our last post, our Q&A post, is a little trash shelf sign made out of Scrabble letters, and it is very cute. And it's hanging in our house, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, nice.
So, thank you, Dave Chappelle, not the comedian Dave Chappelle.
So, a couple weeks ago, we talked about, like, a site that had a lot of audio educational podcasts.
Yeah.
Where...
Like online courses.
Right. Because, I think people who are hearing this are like us. You're working all day, and you want things to listen to other than just dumb radio sometimes.
Yeah.
So we always like to mention things that are interesting. So number one is
Serial
is back on.
Okay, so if you haven't heard of Serial, you should look it up and listen to the first season. And so here's my problem with Serial while I'm working. If I miss something, like there are times where I've listened to Serial where I just sit at my computer and listen and do nothing else because that's how like intense it is, which is really crazy.
You're really into it.
No, I don't. I'm just like, oh, I missed a sentence. I have to go back.
It's just good storytelling.
Yes.
And so
go listen to it.
And
it's a new season.
We'll put a link to it. I mean, people that have heard it probably already know all this.
Yeah.
Then another one I heard was there is a series of podcasts on the Charles Manson murders.
Oh, I would love to listen to that during the day.
So,
oh my God. What? No, that is interesting.
Anyone that is interested in Charles Manson and
Charlie,
those murders in the Hollywood Hills, this is a series where they kind of like get into what happened, how they figured this stuff out. It's interesting.
Well, it's especially interesting for us because that happened before we were born. Yeah. So
that's... And some people are into true crimes, basically.
Yeah.
It's a whole genre, it's a whole TV thing. But this, I think, is done pretty well, and it's something else.
That's interesting. Where did you find that? Just curious. Just on the internet.
On the internet.
Yeah, that's the answer. Yes.
Okay, some things we learned in the comments this week. I know other people were saying that their stores were kind of quiet and they expected it to be more hot and heavy. I mean, number one, I would love to I can't wait to see people's numbers and see if their numbers are actually as quiet as what it feels like. Because again, there can be
You can be ignorant like me, where I'm not looking at my numbers.
But number two is, I actually we heard like a little bit on the radio about this on the news, how this is true for all retailers. It's like after the December 16th
like
or
people
something,
stop shopping.
They say that online sales stop because people don't expect it to get to them, or they bought everything, or they want to just go and buy in person. So so I don't think if things are slower, it's not specific to us.
Yeah, you're not doing anything wrong.
It's
just
retail, the retail world,
the
which
retail
we're part of.
cycle. Yeah.
People were asking about how to ship a rug.
It's a good question because it really depends on the thickness of your rug. I like to sell a lot of rugs that are like thin, flat weave wool rugs.
It's called a kiln.
A kilim or kilum. Kilim. I do not know how to pronounce it.
And it's like a thin, flat weave, but like it should be a wool rug.
It's wool rug. It's
really
Turkish.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
but
beautiful.
those are nice. They can get folded into just like a big kind of heavy ball.
Yeah, it's like I'm not talking about shipping like a wall-to-wall shag rug. I'm talking about like an area rug that can get folded up. That being said, we photographed one of the rugs. It's actually a machine-made rug. It's wool. It's like Persian looking. And I think I'm going to have to roll that up. But, so here's the deal. So you have a rug that's kind of thick and has to get rolled. You roll it up. I tie it with, like, some, heavy-duty thread, nylon thread or something.
Twine,
whatever. Something that'll hold up while it's being shipped. And then you can get, like, trash bags at Walmart or wherever that are thick trash bags, like construction. What do they call it? Like construction?
Yeah, construction. Black trash bags built for
construction materials.
Where you can put in wood and nails and
so it's like whatever 3 mil thick. Like it's a thick. So you get a box of those, and you're going to wrap your rug in that and tape it. And then if you have poly mailers, or maybe that might be thick enough, you could do 2 layers of that. Just so that if it's being slid into a truck and out, it's not going to get ripped. Or if it does, there's another layer. Tape that up, put the label on it, and ship it like that.
I mean, we bought
That's how you do it.
a couple of rugs off of Amazon or eBay or off the
And that's how they're shipped.
And
they're rolled
just,
up in plastic.
They just come rolled
Yeah.
up, and it's just like in a big poly mailer.
Yeah, it's a big plastic poly mailer type deal.
So that being said, how big do you think that you can send a rolled up rug?
You know, you gotta look at, like
5x9? No.
I don't know. I mean, really, I have no idea, because most of the rugs I've shipped are not like that. So you have to look at the allowable dimensions on FedEx ground, because that's probably how you're going to be shipping it, or USPS. You know, I don't know.
How big have you ever shipped, do you think? Guess. Gun to your head. 4x6.
4x6 is the biggest rug that I've ever shipped, I think.
Yep. So, you know, people, if you're thinking of, you know, those, you know, I'm thinking about it. It's like I'm standing on one right now.
It's like 10 by 12.
It's, you know, it's like 10 by 12.
It's freaking huge.
8 by 10. It can only be rolled up. I think that kind of thing is local pickup, you know. But
I don't, you know what? Me being like I'm not a rug expert. I don't know. I've never shipped a rug this big. The one that we're standing on right now is kind of a high pile rug too. I don't know. I don't know how much it would weigh. I don't know how much. Yeah, I have no idea for that one.
Adventures in shipping.
I don't know.
Okay, something else I noticed on the blog comments. There are a lot of nurses who happen to be scavengers too.
Either they work part-time, full-time, or retired.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting.
Yeah. I wonder if maybe that just happened to be that way, or if for some reason, like, something about being a nurse feeds into the organization
of like scavenging.
Yeah,
well, since there are so many out there, they should give us a clue as to why they got into eBay and are also into nursing.
Right. And did people not pay them enough to, like, now all they have to scavenge for a living?
I don't know. That's a great I mean, yeah, that's a good question.
Nurses should get paid so much money.
I know. Okay, so another thing that happened in the comments was Trader Clint was complaining about not being able to combine shipping on global shipping items.
Right. Someone from Italy bought three hats from him, but they were separate purchases. And so, of course, the buyer's like, okay,
put them all in one box.
I bought all 3 of these, combine them, thank you.
Yeah, there's no good answer. That's why it's a pain.
And that's a problem, with global shipping. It doesn't really let you do that. The only thing you can really do is you can, and I know it stinks.
Yeah.
If they've already bought it, you can cancel the sales.
Make a custom listing.
Make a custom listing that's like 3 hats for Italy guy.
Yeah.
And then he buys that.
And then that all goes in one box.
Right. That's really the only way to do it.
Although he said he called eBay, and eBay was like, if they put it all in their cart, they can request a total. Now, I do believe that is possible with domestic, but I don't think that's possible with global shipping program.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's just the mysteries of eBay that make no sense.
We like the global shipping program. We've talked about it. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. But this is one of those things that does stink about combining shipping in global shipping program after everything's been bought. So
you're like...
that's the unfortunate thing.
It is a pain.
Okay, our coming week, what are you going to do? What is everyone going to do this coming week? For us, we're just continuing to list on eBay.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
that's our big news,
it
right?
Christmas this week?
Yeah, it's Christmas, which is kind of good because everything else gets kind of quiet.
Yeah, like people are like, well, clearly they're not buying, but maybe they will.
I mean, I think too. I know it's supposed to be where we are. It shouldn't be this warm, but it's going to be in the
really warm
70s. I mean, the cold weather is coming, and I can't wait. I want those like 2 to 3 months in our part of the country where it's like 20 degrees all the time.
Because you have a wood stove. That's the only reason you're happy.
It's too, but then I just feel like everything calms down. Like,
Yeah.
everyone just kind of like bundles up and like stops kind of talking to each other. It's good.
They buy jackets and sweaters.
And we can just focus on eBay, you know?
Yeah. Okay, we are going to listen to comments and questions that people called in on our voicemail or emailed. You can call us at any time of the day or night. It's just a voicemail. And the phone number is 540-407-8486.
Hello, fellow Scavengers. It's Malik Emrich from Cincinnati again with a quick question. I have purchased a store now, and I was just curious, how long do you think it would take, on average, to get your listing minimums increased enough to look like and sound like a decent store? Because as a beginner seller, you're only allowed with limits, 100? And then my first increase was 75, so now I'm sitting at 175. And I nailed that within days. So I've been sitting here for about a week with just gathering inventory, just sitting and sitting, and waiting for my once every 30 days to call up and get an increasement. So I guess basically, what would be your give or take average increasements would be? How long would it take to get a decent sounding number store? Is my question. Is it usually only 75, or does it just depend on how good it does depend on how good you're selling, but that's all. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.
Okay, thanks for its question. I mean, if you're new to eBay, yes. If you start a new account from scratch, there will be a limit to what you can put up. And the reason for that is they don't want someone who's never sold on eBay to just start throwing stuff up there, counterfeit stuff, crazy stuff, just people buying stuff isn't getting shipped. eBay is kind of giving you a little tiny sandbox.
Yeah.
And they want to see if you can successfully sell stuff
and ship
it, ship it, and the buyer not complain.
And that you get feedback.
The good news is I don't think that there's I'm going to link to what eBay says. There are guidelines, but it's not really in 30 days you can list 1,000 things. It's really based on what they see happen with you.
Yeah.
Some of it will be just automatically upgrades. Oh, suddenly we'll get a message and they're like, you can now list this much.
Yeah.
But some of it you can call them too.
Yeah, and just say, look, I'm a real person. I'm selling. I have this many transactions, and they might just bump you up. But it's gradual.
But your strategy should simply be with the stuff you can put up, do it right. When people buy it, ship it right away.
Yeah.
And if there's any kind of concern or problem on the buyer's end, take its return, be professional.
Yes.
Don't cause a big scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the things that you can do.
Hey, Jay and Ryan. This is Albert from West Virginia, the state of West Virginia, not the western part of Virginia. And I listen to your podcast all the time. I have commented on the blog a time or two, but mostly I just kind of hang back in the shadows. My question this week is, did you ever find out why some items are being kicked out of the global shipping program? It finally happened to me today. I had some sleigh bells that were sold to Australia, and it showed the global shipping program all the way through the entirety of the purchase, even after it was sold, and I went on my sold page, it still showed global shipping until the moment when I printed the shipping label, and then it was no longer in the GSP. So I was just wondering, I know it happened to you guys, and you had mentioned it on a previous podcast, and I was just wondering if you ever discovered why it happened. Kind of made me nervous because it also gave me a notification that there's no delivery confirmation where I'm sending this to. So not only did I not get to use global shipping, but there's no delivery confirmation where I'm sending it to. So I was just wondering if you could fill us in if you ever found out why certain items are kicked out or certain places. Is it regions? Is it tributaries? Is it countries altogether? I know when I first started in GSP, it seemed like everything was in it. So have a good day. Enjoy your podcast immensely. I listen every single week, mostly while I'm driving to the antique mall. So keep up the good work.
So what I don't understand about this is, when you say it was in the global shipping program, where did you see that? Was it on, like, when you're looking on your listing, was it like going to be shipped via eBay's global shipping program? Like, was it saying that on the page?
Yeah. I mean,
That's what's weird.
And we only ask because it's a very good thing to ask, and it's a good observation because we've had that same problem. And he mentions that we've talked about it before, where things in the past that have sold and have shipped through the global shipping program now are being kicked out, or like we have it listed as global shipping. It gets bought, but it will only ship priority.
Yeah, direct to Australia to that person's address.
Which isn't so bad, but then it adds a level of its responsibility that we don't want to have to deal with.
The first thing that comes to mind, this is totally random, is if your sleigh bells were made out of leather, maybe there's some restriction that eBay just kicks in, like, afterwards, where they're like, we're not going to ship leather to Australia.
Yeah, I mean,
like, there's got to be something happening.
I don't do this often, but if anyone from eBay is listening, this is like one of those questions where, like, it is just a mystery. We've tried calling customer service, and they don't know. They're just like, they're reading off a script, or they just make something up like they don't know. I would just love to know if the global shipping program's changing, like they're getting more strict.
Right.
Like, what could it be? Is it like what it's made out of?
Is it the category?
Yeah.
Is it the country?
And and then why allow something to even be in the program when you list it if it's not going to actually be shipped that way?
Right.
Because I would love to know, okay, if I list this, it will not ship global shipping.
And should I decide to offer international shipping on this because I don't want to ship it to Australia myself? Whatever.
But I don't have high hopes anyone from eBay will contact us.
But still,
that is going to be a floating question.
Hey guys, a couple comments, and please don't take this the wrong way. I know, I'm listening to you guys complain / talk about templates, and I know complain's awfully negative. I guess it's not bad, but you guys really need to learn Fox Pro or hire a programmer, because basically what I have is, I hit like 3 buttons. I fill in a few minimal things, and I can post an item within a very short amount of time. And I'm fairly computer literate. Now, I'm lucky because my boyfriend is my programmer, so it's a little easier for me. But especially since you're such a large outfit, you might want to consider having a programmer customize a program that helps you post. And I know there's many out there. I just know that mine is particularly good at what it does. So I can be doing things on Amazon on one computer on one screen, and I can be posting my eBay items on the other. So you might want to think about that. The other thing that maybe you guys should think more about, and maybe you do, but you just haven't mentioned it yet that I've heard of, is when I'm thinking about my time in terms of where I'm going with my business and how I'm spending my time with my business, I multiply what my time is worth into what I'm doing. Like, for example, let's say you think your time is worth $150 an hour. Well, are certain things that you are doing, worth that, or is it something that maybe you can delegate to someone on Fiverr or someone local? And that way you can, like, for example, I know on your other blog you talk about, now I'm dropping things. You talk about cleaning the house and things like that because you want it done a certain way. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because you multiply your time, what it's worth, into cleaning your house, and you're losing money in that aspect of it. So I think that those are things that you constantly have to think about, because it's really easy to let the time get away from you, and then you're like, where the heck did my day go? What am I doing? Am I being productive? And, obviously everybody can be a slacker sometimes. I am too. But I like to feel that the time that I have in my life that I'm never ever going to get back, that time is spent productively and in a manner that I want it to be spent in. So, okay, guys, just a couple thoughts. Thanks.
Wow, okay, yeah. I mean, I love that idea. Like, this is my time. Once a minute goes by, I lose it forever. I mean, I get that. I think at this point, it's not really a choice for us whether we hire people to do work for us or not. We're still in kind of like the sweat equity mode, where, we just have to do the work ourselves because, we don't have the money to spend, pay someone else to do.
Her argument would be, if you're paying someone to clean the house for X dollars and you're making X dollars more listing on eBay, like, I get that,
And I think that's a fair thing. I guess the way I would say it is this. Number one, an example of, we have like 5 acres of grass on different properties that for 2 years I was trying to cut myself.
Yeah. No, you weren't trying to cut it. You were cutting it.
Yeah, I was, although I don't think I was very good at it, because I would have to deal with like when things would break down and I had to take it in, and I wasn't, and I hated it. And we did exactly that. And we now spend, whatever, $2,000 a year paying a guy to like cut all of our grass.
Yeah.
But it's done beautifully.
We don't have to think about it once.
So I do take her advice very seriously. Yes. Where I think once we get to a point where we can afford to hire someone to clean, we may do that.
We'll figure that out.
I think one other thing too is that as we're starting a new business, it's important for us to be involved in the very details when it's still new like this.
Yeah, it's still new.
Like, I don't want to hire someone until I know the ins and outs of what needs to get done.
Like, for cleaning our house, our farmhouse, like, I want to be able to know each room, which I do, in order to say, you gotta look for this. You gotta look for this. Sometimes this is like this, so keep an eye on that. I wouldn't know that if I had never cleaned my house yet.
And then as far as eBay goes, like hiring people for eBay to help you do your eBay business. I mean, we've interviewed several people that hire out photos or a listing. We're gonna edit soon and post an interview we did with Dan and his wife.
They hire people,
and they hire the photos and the a listing part of it. I mean, it's always very interesting because it's just such a big thing to hand over to somebody else. And for me, though, it's always trying to figure out what those numbers are. Like, you're taking on this extra cost. How much more do I need to sell to pay those people versus doing it myself?
Right, exactly.
I don't know. I mean, I don't like to work harder than I have to, so I guess we each just kind of do it at our own pace.
Also, we're figuring it out as we go. Yeah. I mean, the fact that we're like, you get to a point where you're like, we need to hire someone to do lawn maintenance. Like, we are no longer capable of doing this properly. And you did it like that day. Right. You're like, I'm hiring someone today. Right. The end. Done.
Yeah.
I do want to address her talking about hiring a programmer for eBay or something, like doing eBay listings.
We were just talking about, we stopped at using a template because it took too long to list. And she said she got someone to build a template to where it's really easy to list. I think for us, it's not so much, although it is true, we save now time not using a template. The bigger reason why we dumped the template was our template wasn't working well on mobile, iPads and on phones, where you would load up our store and the template wouldn't fit to the right size.
It was just
it's dynamic sizing. So I guess we could have hired someone.
I don't care about the template. Yeah. Like, I just want to put the information on and put nice photos and title. and it takes me like such minimal time to list.
And we were
now.
very skeptical about it, but you know what? It's one of those examples where we were just wrong and we've learned correctly. Buyers do not care about templates from our opinion.
And you know what? And that's changed since we started, because when we started, a very few people had smartphones. And now, like, everybody does. So
people just want a good title, good photos, and then just like a little bit of text. Like, they don't read big paragraphs, you know? So
yeah.
That's it for us.
Hi, Ryan and Jay. This is Kenny from Illinois. I watch each week for your podcast and your midweek sales video. They are great. My question, as a longtime eBay buyer, but only casual seller moving now to a more serious seller, eBay stores, can you have separate store names under a single username and still retain the feedback rating of the single user ID? I want to sell a variety of diverse items and think they would do better under different stores, such as my wife's collectibles and dolls and clothing, and my musical and electronic and tool equipment. I've built up great feedback over the years, primarily as a buyer, but I do not want to lose that rating with multiple stores or new user IDs. Also, question about shipping multiple items. When more than one item is available in a listing, I cannot sort out how to adjust shipping. For example, the pricing that shows for shipping of each additional item. How is that done? Many sellers also indicate they will combine shipping. I will appreciate any direction on how to do these things. You are both an inspiration. Thank you, and I wish you a Merry Christmas.
Okay, so a couple things about stores. You can only have one store per username, so I cannot have two stores under my username. That being said, my opinion, I think Jay shares my opinion, it does not matter what you're selling in your store. If you have electronics and tools and collectibles and dolls, nobody cares. They're not like, oh, I don't want to buy doll parts from this guy who sells electronics. Nobody cares. You
Right.
just sell anything you want.
I mean, ultimately, you got to see it from how a buyer is experiencing this. They're typing in a search term,
Yeah.
and just items pop up from all different people, and they're just clicking based on photos and titles. So they aren't looking like, oh, it's being sold by,
Yeah.
Dunbar 18.
Yeah.
I don't want to buy from him because he sells,
Yeah.
So really, that's why we think it's all about having a general store.
Yeah,
Just
you have
put
a
it all
general
in
store.
there. No one's. Now, that being said, there are people who don't believe that. They
Right.
really think that if they have it's curated store, that people will buy multiple things from them. So, like the kids that sell on Etsy.
And that's a different market.
They sell 1990s clothes, and each of their stores is very specific
Yeah.
to, like, men's 1990s clothes, and that's what they sell.
Yeah.
And that works for them, and what they say is, like, people will come and they'll buy, like, a whole outfit.
Yeah.
That hasn't been our experience
Right.
on eBay.
Yeah.
If you do want to have multiple stores, you can you have the same PayPal? But
Yeah. You can have the same PayPal address on both stores. You just have different usernames and different
Right.
store names.
And then, so if you start a new store for your wife's dolls, you just start from scratch and just build up a new.
And we did that for our second store. The reason we did the second store wasn't to sell different items. Everything that's in my second store, I would have put in my first store. We were just doing an experiment, and we still continue to do an experiment of, if we hit a plateau at X number of dollars, well, if we had two stores, would we make twice as much? If we
Right.
have 2,000 in this store, 2,000 in this store, are we making double? Are we still plateauing? We don't know. We're still working on that. As far as combined shipping goes, eBay has rules. Say you have 10 items, 10 pieces of hardware. They all weigh the same. You can do a rule where you say each additional item is 50 cents extra to ship, or $1 extra to ship, depending on the weight. You can implement that rule if you know exactly what your items are. In that listing, you have quantity 10 or whatever.
But that really only works if you're trying to sell things that are alike. So they're all
all
about
the same.
the same size and weight. We don't do that.
I'm saying this is one listing, quantity 10,
I see what
not
you're saying.
combined shipping with other
I
listings.
see.
I have no idea how to do that, to be honest.
Yeah. I think eBay has these things where you can say, if you buy 3 things in It's My Store, a 4th one is free shipping. Or
Yeah, there's ways to do it, and you know what? You should call eBay because I have no idea how to do it in that respect. On a quantity 10 up item or whatever, there is a way to say each additional item is 50 cents or however much you want extra to ship, and a lot of people do that. If you're buying like,
Really?
10 iPhone cables or whatever, that's free shipping usually, but yes, there's ways to do it. I rarely do it because I rarely have quantity.
Right. So we have one last question. It was emailed to us from Debs. Truer Values.
Deb at Truer Values.
I'm going to try and keep this brief because it's a big topic. It's about, she would like us to comment on our scavenging process. She's asking questions, do we shop together the whole time?
Right.
When we go out? Do we split up at the shop and then gather stuff in carts and then we bring it together and talk about it before purchasing, like a check and balance? Have each of us honed our shopping skills to the specific areas of our store? Like Ryan goes to housewares, Jay likes luggage.
Right.
Or do we both just shop the whole store together? Do we sit and look up the items before we actually go and buy them? She asks, how much time would you spend browsing through a Goodwill store? She's asking because she knows some people just go to a Goodwill and just run through it in 10 minutes and grab just anything easy.
Yeah.
Or like her, she says she could easily spend a couple hours just going through each and every item.
Right.
At auctions, do we go early and then talk about what purchase we're going to make and then bid on them later?
Right.
And she says we don't talk much about estate sales or yard sales. Do we go to them much?
Yeah.
And then at like estate sales, do we get there early, scout it out?
Yeah.
Do we like say we aren't going to spend more than $10 an item? Do we,
Yeah.
And she says, sorry if these are common. It's questions. Just she hasn't heard us talk about. So number one, in earlier podcasts, we have talked more about its process. Like, we're in episode like 233, and maybe this it's 50 podcasts. We talked more. It was more like how to. We were just kind of explaining like what we do, and so there are podcasts where we're like how we buy at auctions and how we buy at yard sales. Yeah, me and Mikey did a whole thing on like our different strategies of like
at yard sales and stuff.
Buy things at yard sales.
Like it's like good cop, bad cop at the yard sale.
So I will put a link to the blog on maybe some of those earlier ones if you're interested. But it's an interesting question to revisit because we're a couple years later now.
Yeah,
things have changed. I mean, so very briefly, when we shop at like a Goodwill, we normally split up.
Yeah.
So, and it's not that each of us go to like different parts of the store. We just have our own pace.
Yeah.
And because the store is so big, we can cover more territory.
Now, that being said, we don't shop at Goodwill very often because Goodwill is overpriced and,
at a thrift store.
A thrift store. Okay, so at a thrift store, yes. So, like, I do have to say it really depends on the day and, like, what we're feeling like. Like, for me, I'm just like, I feel like looking at shoes today. Sometimes I'm like, I don't care about shoes. I want to look at housewares, like it just depends on what you're feeling, but we do split up.
I think I like to not shop faster. I like to cover more territory and then go back onto things I saw. I think Orion is more like, she starts in one place and she's very slow and
like meticulous
about it. Yeah, so that's the way we do it. We split up. And then if I see something that I need like some advice on, I'll say, Orion, come over
You do that all the time, actually, and I get annoyed because I'm meticulously like shelf. And you're like, Ryan, come here. I'm like, I'm not done.
And normally I do that because I'll see something that looks cool in my gut, but we won't buy it till both of us agree on it. Like, both of us have to be in love with something, one of us does.
But like... Okay, so we'll ask each other advice. We'll be like, is this cool or is this ugly?
Right.
Which is like the classic, whatever question. And then if one of us is like, no, that's so amazing, we have to get that. Or we're both like, oh, it's junky. Like someone just has to be like excited about it.
Sometimes I'm calling you because it has a label on it or something. Sometimes I feel like you because of it's your mom.
Like I've heard of something.
But you're more aware of some of these markings than I would be.
I mean, you'll go like this. You'll say, have you heard of this?
Right.
And I'll be like, yes, definitely get it. Or, yes, and it's not worth anything or whatever.
And then it's Ryan sometimes will be like, look, I found this thing. I don't know about it. And I'll be like, of course you should get that. It's awesome.
Like what? Like a painting or
something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick. So about auctions, yes. I mean, I feel like we've talked about auctions many times, but we always go to auctions early.
You have to get there early.
An hour early for us. I know some people that go like the day before and take photos, and that's cool too. We need about an hour. We kind of walk through everything.
Or more if we're dedicated and have coffee.
And, we even write notes on our phone. Yeah. Sometimes we'll then go get coffee if we have time to talk about things. Yeah. But often I find with auctions, it's strange. We can go through things, but then in the auction itself,
stuff pops up.
Things start popping up that I didn't see or I realize are better than I thought. So I still am kind of like fly by the seat of our pants kind of thing.
Sometimes, but I will say this about auctions. It is very important that you preview the stuff. If you show up, this has happened to us a couple times. If you show up as it's starting or it's already started and you haven't looked at stuff,
we'll always overpay.
You always overpay for stuff, or you're like, yes, I totally want to buy that. And you're like, oh, I just bought complete garbage.
Well, it's good for us to go early because we know when we're willing to make an investment. We're like, I like that. I'm willing to pay a lot for that.
Yeah.
The reason, fly by the seat is because there could be boxes where I wouldn't have bought, but because they're only being sold for $5,
I'll get it. Yeah.
I'll get it because I'll be like $5 for that, all that stuff.
Great, I'll do it.
There's got to be something in there.
Yeah, something that's worth more than $5.
And then estate sales. We go to estate sales for sure. Just in our area, they aren't as common because I feel like estate sales are more like an urban kind of thing.
High-end and urban
areas, yes. That happens more when we're traveling or in a city.
Like I've seen one estate sale in our area in the last 3 years.
Yard sales, we love yard sales.
Yeah,
we have not talked about them this year in 2015 because we just simply haven't been to a lot of them.
Yeah.
We've been too busy doing other things and listing our death piles. We have all these death piles. We had 28 bins of stuff we hadn't done, we hadn't put online because of yard sales. Yeah. Because we would go and buy all this stuff.
Yeah. So and box lots at auctions.
And then last, one thing it's mentioned is flea markets, which is my favorite.
Yes.
Flea markets, outdoor flea markets are my favorite scavenging experience. Because it is like the Mad Max kind of thing. Just everyone's just backed up their cars.
Junkers.
Everything's on tables. There's the junkers.
There's antiquers though too.
There's nice people and and it's outdoors. It's like a festival experience. I love those. Yeah. We only been a couple times in 2015 for the same reason as yard sales. Yes. We buy too much stuff, and so this year was the year of we get everything online.
Look, we buy too much stuff, and we started a rental business where we were cleaning a house every other day. Let's not forget that. Yeah. So the thing about flea markets, how we shop is we'll stay kind of close together. We'll be within a couple booths of each other, but I'll be looking at different stuff than you, meticulously or not, just crap. And you'll be talking to dudes about holsters and military gear, and I'm like, I'm so bored next to you, so I'm going over here. No, but we have different things that we're trying to get.
That's the other thing I love about flea markets is that I can learn a lot.
Yes, you do learn.
There are guys, and girls who
Yeah.
run a booth, and they're maybe specialty in
Yes.
certain things, and I can learn about things that they're trying
Like
to
Jay will
sell.
ask a million questions, just like, what is this? Whatever. What's the history of it?
And that's why I love it, because
Yeah.
it is like a festival.
People love to
experience.
talk about that stuff too,
Yeah.
so that's fun. We found amazing stuff at flea markets that people are like, $1, and you're like, oh, you have no idea what this is.
Yeah.
Yay!
So so I don't know.
So basically, like, I would sum it up to say, we shop together, but separately, and we come back together. We're kind of like, rubber bands. Like, we'll go apart and come back, and
Yeah.
consult with each other. At Goodwill, we'll have a cart of stuff. Is this jacket junky? No, let's get it. Let's go through it and sort and do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it depends on the day, too.
And it works.
It
for us.
seems to work so far.
Cool. So that's it for this week. I will put links to some of the things that we've talked about at scavengerlife.com, and you can also join the discussion there if you'd like.
Yes. You can call and leave a question or a comment on something you heard or something you read on the blog. The number again is 540-407-8486.
We post an episode every Sunday night, Monday morning, depending on kind of our schedule. And then on Wednesdays, we post a What Sells video. So you can actually see some of these things we talk about and the prices we get for it. You can subscribe to us through iTunes or YouTube, either one. Pick your poison. And you can go to our other podcast at shampooandbooze.com, where we talk more about our rental. And I got to remind people that are asking, it's called Shampoo and Booze because those are two of the things that people will leave behind from its vacation.
So we go to clean, and there's 2 beautiful bottles of high-end shampoo that will last me half a year.
And like a bottle of wine, so it's great.
Yeah, I'm just like, I couldn't ask for anything
It'd be
better.
weird to call it like milk and eggs.
They definitely leave milk
they
and
do that
eggs.
too, so.
But shampoo and booze just sounded cooler.
Or it's diced jalapenos. That kind of thing.
Jar of diced jalapenos.blogspot.com.
We could start a whole blog of what people leave behind and how much we love it. So
Yeah.
And also, we do want to thank people. There was a handful of people who have sent us donations.
Yes.
Just kind
That's
of
so
out
nice.
of the kindness of their heart. It is definitely not a necessary thing, but we appreciate it.
It helps us pay a couple bills.
And we want to let you know that donations that have been sent to us this month are going to pay our home insurance, because that bill is due at the end of this month.
Yes. So
So-
thank you for helping insure our house.
Yeah, we
that is
appreciate it.
very appreciated.
Okay, and wait, the cat has something to say. What is it? This podcast is what? Ending in
3, 2, 1. Bye.